So it's a very interesting situation when it comes to the Indian cricket team and of course the selection for the Indian team which will be taking part in the Sri Lanka white ball ODI series and T20I series. Remember, there's going to be 3 matches of each, which is going to be India's next major assignment that does start off their home season for 2023. Now, why do I say it's an interesting situation? Well, because aside from the fact that there's a lot of question marks over who gets selected for what particular reasons, which we will come to in just a bit, there's also the fact that this particular series, at least the team for this particular series, is going to be selected by reportedly a selection committee that had already been given the boot. You heard that right. It will in fact be the previous old guard selection regime who will be selecting the series, who will be selecting the team for this particular series. And if that in itself in many ways is not a summation of how exactly or how chaotic things are, then I don't think there's too many things that can sum up a better picture. Either which way, regardless of who it is that is selecting the teams for this particular series, they will have a few interesting things or a few things which they have to be keeping in mind and which naturally lead us to asking a few interesting questions on the kind of selections that could very well be made for this particular series. So without further ado, let's just take a quick look at those questions. The first of which surrounds this man, India's skipper Rohit Sharma. The real question is, will he be fit enough to be considered for selection for the ODI and T20 series? Now, it is worth noting that after the T20 World Cup, Rohit had in fact been rested from the New Zealand series, was playing the Bangladesh matches, but unfortunately picked up a rather freaky injury to his thumb. Didn't actually end up playing the Test series, but reportedly is in a much better position as things stand. However, the real question is right now whether or not they feel that a Sri Lanka series would be a better place to risk Rohit, considering the fact that, well, there is a lot of cricket still to be played, and perhaps most importantly, India would want all of their all-format players fit for the Test series that will be coming up against Australia after, of course, the ODI and T20I series against both New Zealand and Sri Lanka of which is coming up first. So Rohit may or may not be available for selection, but even if he is available, there still remain some question marks as to whether or not he'll be selected or whether they take the safe route and allow his thumb to heal even more before they finally bring him back into action, rather than rush him back and for a tour that quite frankly doesn't really hold as much importance as the one that the Australia tour does. Second question involves this man KL Rahul and whether or not he's actually going to be available for selection to begin with. Now, obviously we know for a fact there's been plenty of news reports out there saying that he in fact will be on leave for personal reasons, which many believe are for his marriage. But it is also worth noting that in his absence, well, India will need a new vice captain or someone to step up just in case they feel that Rohit might not be fit enough. And unfortunately for KL, in recent times, his spot in the team has come under a lot of scrutiny. People feel that, his performances for India in quote-unquote big games haven't really been up to par. And even though under his captaincy, India just sealed a 2-0 series win in Bangladesh, there was a feeling that maybe a lot of that was not down to KL's captaincy, but rather to the fact that Bangladesh are the 9th best team in a 9-team World Test Championship. So there are plenty of question marks over KL Rahul, but some of those questions might actually have to wait because for all you know, he could very well be on personal leave for this particular series. Whether or not that's actually the case, that's only something that we'll get to know once the teams are announced. Which brings us to the next big important question, and it involves this man, Hardik Pandya. Is this series finally going to be the coronation of him as India's white ball captain? Now, there's been plenty of talk out there with regards to Hardik Pandya being given the T20I captaincy for India. Recently, that talk picked up, and we over here at Sports Today and Sports Talk reported the fact that Hardik is now being considered not just for T20I captaincy, but for ODI captaincy as well, meaning India want to bring about a change when it comes to their white ball cricket. Now, obviously, this is something that hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but we could see whether or not the team is heading in that sort of a direction when the teams for the Sri Lanka series have been announced. At the very least, we will know whether or not the team sees him justifiably so as a long-term option, or whether or not they feel that, yeah, okay, he did a decent enough job in New Zealand, but maybe they'll continue to stick to their guns. But it does seem likely that it will be the former, But whether or not, we get more answers such as, is Hardik going to be the ODI captain as well? That's something that we might just have to wait and watch for a bit. But of course, questions aren't just surrounding this man. There are a lot of players who are looking to come back into the Indian team and who haven't been able to do so for one reason or the other. And we're going to quickly go over these. Jasprit Bumrah, Ravindra Jadeja, both have been plagued with injuries a lot in recent times, and both reportedly are now fit for selection. So the real question is, do we include them in the team now, or do you save them for another tour, potentially New Zealand, or maybe even the Australia series? Again, it is worth noting that with Bumrah, he was unfortunately rushed back into full match gear. He was rushed back into fitness, and he was rushed back into the playing 11 ahead of the T20 World Cup because India felt they needed him for the World Cup. Unfortunately, that was a ploy that didn't work out at all because he ended up getting re-injured again, and this time around the injury was much more severe, which is why it is nearly going to be January now, and we're only just getting to a point where Bumrah is bowling full tilt and may or may not be available for selection. Jadeja, on the other hand, you'd remember, was injured well beforehand. It was still during the Asia Cup time. He too has been recuperating for a long time. But again, are you going to bring him into the fold for a Sri Lanka series and say, okay, look, this is a comparatively easier series. You might want to actually get in there, shake off whatever rustiness you have, get back into match fitness, or save him for either the New Zealand tour or potentially even the Australia tour? Maybe, considering both players are fit and have been posting about their own, exploits in the NCA. They've been posting, like Bumrah has been posting videos of him bowling full tilt at the NCA. Jadeja himself, there's been reports for a long time that he's been ready. So maybe Sri Lanka comes too early, maybe it doesn't. The answer to that question is one that we'll only know tomorrow. Last question, and one for me which is a very important one, is what of India's wicket-keeping conundrum? Now, obviously, you note for the fact that Rishabh Pant in the recent test series against Bangladesh has been playing very well, but the key word is that test series. His white ball credentials haven't really been improved due to his performances in recent times, and unfortunately for him, there are two other wicketkeeper batsmen snapping at his heels. One is his under-19 opening partner, Ishan Kishan, who you'd remember actually ended up getting a double ton during the Bangladesh ODIs, and Sanju Samson, a player who's always in the conversation, but for one reason or the other, never seems to get a long enough rope to justify his potential or show just how good he is to the national team. Now again, you remember that Sanju was part of the team for the New Zealand series. Unfortunately, didn't really get much of a look in there. Hardik Pandya had said he was not around for tactical reasons. Can he actually sneak in ahead of Pant this time around? Will the selectors be bold enough to tell Rishabh Pant that, look, your recent form hasn't been good enough, we're not picking you in the white ball squad? Again, that's something that only time will tell, but it is something that a lot of people will be interested to see what happens, because again, Ishan Kishan has forced himself into the conversation with his recent good performances. Sanju has been part of the conversation, unfortunately hasn't been given enough chances to justify that he deserves a longer rope. Pant, on the other hand, has gotten a lot of chances but hasn't done too much with it. So the wicketkeeper conundrum is a very tricky one for the selectors to solve. How it is that they choose to proceed with this will give us an indication as to what it is they intend doing for the rest of the year. Because remember, 2023 doesn't just have a World Test Championship, but also has an ODI World Cup that will be held in India. And that gives all white ball series as well a lot of significance, because you'd want to be preparing your strongest squad for that particular event. And that is it for us talking about the major questions that this selection committee will be facing ahead of picking the ODI and T20I squad for the Sri Lanka series. What do you guys think are the major concerns for India going into that series? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon so that you know when it is we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Then you can go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and last but not least, download the AajTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us. Bye-bye for now. Take care.